Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by a notice mailed to the Hopewell Valley News and the Trenton Times, posted on a bulletin board in Borough Hall, and filed with the Borough Clerk as required by law.
All right, want to do our roll call?
Mayor Kennedy,
Here.
Mr. Fuller,
Here.
Ms. Hook,
Here.
Mr. Mackey,
Here.
Ms. Steeler,
Here.
Ms. Weaver,
Here.
Ms. Williams.
Here.
All right. Thank you, everyone, particularly for accommodating this. I don't know if it's quite special technically, but this meeting to take care of our COA action before the end of the month. Actually, I don't have the agenda in front of me, but if the first item is the motion to move an executive session, I would happily take that.
Flag salute, probably.
Apologies. Yes, I'm happy to. We could all rise and flag salute.
Little flag somewhere.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I can see the firehouse one. I got you guys.
There you go.
Oh, thanks, Sherry.
You're welcome.
Now, with that, I'm happy to take a motion to enter executive session.
So moved.
Okay, I guess I heard David. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. In your email was that second link. It's also in the chat here. I will mute myself and put up a screen here. So for the residents who are following along at the moment, that's one. Melissa, we will be back shortly after getting some legal advice. In executive session, we were going to leave to another room and then come back to take action on a few things here this evening. And while we're out of the room, I'll put up a screen that explains that they're not in the wrong place.
Look, we made it over here quickly.
See, we're trickling in. Oh, not you made it in directly. Deb, I've got to move over. We'll see how some people stayed as panelists and some people.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Interestingly, I'm not sure what was different about yours, but
I just clicked the link.
yeah.
Yeah, all right, thank you.
For those on council and our professionals who are watching and not participating, we'll move you over to the main room. Not everyone got a direct pass for some reason, so. And I'm doing my best not to accidentally let someone from the public join us. I'll give everyone a few more minutes. I see Doug coming in. David. Those are the public. We're reassembling back in public session in a moment. Just take a minute to get all the members of council over as panelists. So bear with us for another minute or two. Lisa, you're next as to come over. I don't see anyone else in the waiting room. Does it look like we've got everyone we're expecting on this side now? So I count 6 council members and 4 professionals. I think that's all of us. All right. Thank you all. And again, if I'm missing some of this out here, someone shout and we'll wait a few minutes. But I think we've got everyone back. To the members of the public, thank you for bearing with us. Where council is resuming the public part of our meeting after receiving legal advice in closed executive session. We will restart our meeting if you're following on the agenda with the public participation, first of 2 opportunities for public comment. If you are interested in doing so, if you could, let me pull Doug back on. Please raise your hand. We will recognize you and ask that you keep your initial comments for this part to 5 minutes. We'll do our best to follow along and answer any questions you have if we can. We cannot take action on anything raised this evening because of the type of meeting we have, but we will. First, Melissa Cookman, I'm going to bring you over as a panelist. It'll take a second for you to come over. Doug, looks like I finally got you over. Sorry about that.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can. If you could state your name and if you could get your camera on, then we could see you as well. I don't know if that's technically required, but we can at the moment.
I would rather not. Stop laughing, Joanna. Melissa Cookman, Hopewell Borough.
Thank you.
I had just a couple of questions that aren't related to any of this. Is that okay?
That is perfectly okay.
Great, thank you. I was wondering if I wasn't at the last meeting, where we are with outdoor dining and if people have to reapply or if all the restaurants comfortable with whatever decisions were made. So that was my first question. And my second question is any new information about 57? I mean, I know we're waiting for a site plan, but I wondered if there was anything else. And if any of you are on Facebook and follow Weather New Jersey, this guy gives all the weather and then he has at the bottom in English. And so I wish this resolution was something I could understand. but I'm looking at the resolution that you're working on, the 2532. What is it saying in very lay person's terms? Like what the, we're adopting a binding resolution for the fourth round, and then the next paragraph, I tried, and it says that present need is 0. So I don't really understand what it is. So I know,
Gotcha.
I don't want all the details, just enough to understand it.
Well, you're in luck. I think you've got the right. We don't always have all of our professionals here this evening. You're lucky that we do. I'll try a couple of these things that. First on outdoor dining. A couple of things happened since it was last discussed, but ultimately a letter went out to businesses, essentially encouraging and offering to have an assistive process for permanent site plan approval that we would have our professionals available to assist in a way that was best and simplest for them. There has been some legislation, surprise last minute legislation to us, essentially intervening there that did change things and perhaps extend things a bit longer. I don't believe we've received any site plan applications as a result of the legislation. But ultimately, there's of the paths that the borough was considering. Ultimately, the path we took was to make our people and resources available to help any business that wanted to turn their outdoor dining, their temporary outdoor dining into permanent, to make that as easy as possible through the site plan process. But after we made that announcement and did that outreach, the state took some action that might have made that it's each business's choice what to do, but ultimately I think they made it a little easier for them to not.
What do you
Sorry.
know? Do we know what the financial burden is to those businesses that have to go through that?
Do I know what the financial burden?
Right. I mean, the process of going through it, filling out whatever forms and things like that, is there a cost, or is there a cost that is the borough, are they borough asking for a percentage or whatever it is, however it works?
So I don't know if I can answer that. There are costs and fees associated with a site plan application. They are fixed by ordinance. I don't happen to know
Okay.
what they are
Okay.
in front of the information that was sent out to the affected restaurants. Kind of laid out what the process would be and the things that we would be able to do to help. And I think and understanding ultimately many of those, what we might refer to as fees, are escrows where you get the change back if things aren't really needed. But there was a kind of a one-on-one opportunity for those businesses to work on that with the town. And I believe the reason why no one has taken us up on that is because the state acted and gave them an extension.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, and there's a new state law that we're still wading through. And essentially one of the first items the state did do was extend the existing provisions for another year.
Oh,
But it did make some additional changes to the MLUL, and we're still wading through those to understand the implications. So it's good news for restaurants with outdoor dining. And I think the restaurants are still wading through it as well, because it's new legislation. So we're going through that now. But and on a case by case, we'll deal with it on a case by case basis also with affected restaurants.
Oh, great, thank you.
Lisa, do you want to try to explain the affordable housing resolution in, I don't know if it could be whether underground level terms, in terms of simplicity, it is complicated, but if you could give the layman's version of
Sure.
what we'll
Well,
be doing tonight.
basically, the resolution accepts certain numbers that the Division of Community Affairs put together for the borough's affordable housing obligations for the fourth round, which is basically a time frame that that started. I guess Joanna, did it start already, or does it start at the end of the month?
Right.
Is
So
yeah.
So these are,
It's for 10 more years.
right, so every 10 years, every municipality in the state gets assigned their affordable housing obligation through sort of a calculation that's done by Department of Community Affairs. Then they give it to each municipality. In this new round, which started this year, January 1, 2025, it'll extend till July 2035. And they gave us the number, and this resolution is in response to their requirement, the state's requirement, that we adopt a resolution saying we're okay with the number that they gave us. And so I heard, Melissa, you said what's present need and what's prospective need. Present need is a need where you rehabilitate existing housing in the borough. And you're required to do so. We didn't get assigned any obligation for that. And the prospective need is basically just a fancy way of saying that you should try to provide 39 affordable housing units in this 10-year period. And that's prospective need. So that's your need for 10 years.
Okay.
And then
Thank
the
you.
resolution basically through the resolution, the town accepts this number because the towns don't have to accept the number. They can come up with their own numbers. So the town accepts the DCA's numbers. And then the next step in the process, when it talks about this declaratory judgment, that's just part of the new program. And that's how you get basically a certification of compliance from the courts. So that would be the next step. And then after that, the municipality puts together a fair share plan and basically sets forth its program for creating those units, as well as units that were not constructed during the prior round. So it moves forward the municipality's promises for affordable housing into the future.
So you guys are just in a negotiate, it says the colon negotiations. What are you negotiating and with whom?
No, it's actually not a negotiation
Oh,
at
because
this
that's what
point.
it said on the agenda.
Well, I think the end result
Oh.
of the session was that, well, I can't speak for council because we haven't taken that action yet, but if that resolution would be approved, the decision would be to accept and not propose.
Oh, that was a question of whether you were going to negotiate the numbers.
Correct.
Is that sort of what that is? Oh, okay.
No, the hope is that the numbers will not change, and that I mean, not to get into it, it gets complicated, but the idea is, and the hope is that these numbers are accepted, and then basically the next step is for the municipality to move forward with putting together its plan based on those numbers. So there wouldn't necessarily and hopefully be any negotiations. It's really the main reason that we were in closed session, a main reason is because this does move us technically into litigation. That's just the way the program's set up.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
And I believe the third question, maybe Joanna, you could do or Krista or David, I'll hide myself in if there's any update that you could provide about.
I don't know any to you, Joanna. I mean, really.
No, I know. All I know is that Mr. Albert is still actively working on the site plan. Obviously, site plan preparation takes a lot of time and engineering. And so I know he's actively working on it, but I don't know, how deep he is in it. Yeah, but
Great.
when he's ready, he'll file an application at the planning board for
Right.
it.
But that's a good piece of information. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Melissa. We have our next member of the public, Mr. Osborne. I'm going to move you over as a panelist. Take a second.
Can you hear me?
Sure can. If you could possibly turn your camera on and introduce yourself. No need for address, though.
Hello?
Yes. Yeah, there we go.
Okay. Hold on. I'm not really a Zoom meeting guy.
You're doing fine. We've got what we need, so feel free to ask away. We see you. Everything's working.
Well, I just had a few questions, really, but in addition to the prospective need, do we have any prior unmet obligation?
Yeah, the borough does carry unmet need, what we call unmet need. Those are units that weren't constructed during what was supposed to be the past 10 years, but actually has been the past 18 years. The third round got projected. Yeah, the borough carries unmet need as is typical with the type of character that the borough has with no vacant land. So that always carries forward. Your obligation just keeps adding to each subsequent round. So that'll
Yeah.
be part of the plan as well.
All right, so it'll be the 34 or whatever plus that prior unmet need.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
And then I guess this kind of just to help me understand, let's say hypothetically speaking, we are able to get enough housing to meet all prior obligations and prospective obligations. Let's say like in 5 years, we've met both all our obligations. At that point, if a developer comes to town and wants to do a new development, let's say 50 units, do they still have to set aside a percentage, or because all of our obligations have been met, they do everything at
No,
market rate?
yeah, it would still be a requirement that they set aside a certain amount for inclusionary zoning, because we would write those ordinance to require that, and capture those units during that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then I guess the last question I had was sort of related to that. Well, maybe I have one more, but Hopewell, I was looking, maybe I just couldn't find it. Hopewell doesn't actually have its own inclusionary zoning ordinance, right? Okay. Is there an advantage to that? I mean, I guess it costs money to write it, but I know like Princeton has one.
Yeah, I'll start. Reason one is that because of cost, we did not participate in the last round. So a lot of the ordinances, we also don't have Affordable Housing Trust Fund, for example, and didn't have the ability to collect non-residential fees because we didn't have a compliant plan. So that's one reason. The second is that we actually don't have any zones that allow more than 4 units at a time, actually. So if you were to want to build 5 units, and it tends to be, the trigger is after 4, you get your 20%, it would be the 5th unit would be affordable. The zones that, aside from our redevelopment zones, that actually allow housing don't allow more than 4. You would need a D variance actually to build that 5th unit. And what we've essentially done, rather than having that ordinance, is tend to use the zoning process to obtain it. So, for example, like the Runyon project or the Bistro will have affordable housing units, not because our ordinance says they have to, but because they couldn't go over 4 units without a special approval that ultimately resulted in them building affordable housing. So likely we're about to enter a phase where we will be creating our plan going forward, and those will likely be elements of it since we could have an approved plan. So we'll, I'm sure, consider, if not be required, to have an ordinance like that. And this spring up through, I believe, June, is that what we have, Joanna, to
Yeah, we have
have
till
a
June
plan,
30th.
for
Mhm.
approval, would be kind of put together and fleshed out going forward.
Yeah, okay. All right. And then lastly, I'm just kind of curious, is there, does the borough keep records? I guess the deed restriction's only 30 years for the affordable units. Are some units close to aging out in town, or?
I'll speak in generalities, but not just close, perhaps
Yeah.
there. So we as part of this plan, we'll have an inventory, but it's largely prospective at this point.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just to add as an example, years ago, we created there were some deed restrictions. I think they were 10-year deed restrictions under something called the Small Cities Grant Program, it's a way of rehabilitating existing apartments and providing financial support to the landlord to do it. And in exchange, you get a 10-year deed restriction. So those expired long ago. So that's the thing. Some of these things last longer than others. That's one of the struggles, I guess, with doing this. But with new development, and Joanna, correct me if I'm wrong, it's 30 years, right? Or is it 40 in some cases?
It's 40 years now for new construction.
Wow.
And then it's 30 years for exactly what you're talking about. If we had a unit that was coming up at the end of its deed restriction and we got them to sign up again, it would be for 30 years. But new construction now is 40 years.
Good questions, Andrew, as always.
Yeah, I guess that's it. I mean, I guess I was kind of concerned if we didn't have our own inclusionary zoning law, if, things can change over
Yep.
in 20
Yeah,
years,
no,
that politically the will might not be there
Right.
to negotiate.
No, that's an excellent point, and I hope I speak for council, but as part of this plan,
Yep.
we should have something like that, and likely will. I can't confirm, commit to that till we've developed it and approved it, but that would be a component of our plan, and ultimately, the being in the process to have a plan approved would mean that even if we didn't need those units, we'd be in more control of it, but we would certainly if someone were to be able to build that, even though we had satisfied our obligation, we would still want those units and want to have a plan in place to accept them, even if it put us somehow over our number.
Right.
I'm don't know if that's mathematically possible to get over our number, but ultimately, yeah, we would want that, and that will be what we'll be working on until June to have those, or at least to have them in the plan. I think we have a little bit more time to actually implement the ordinance beyond that, once we've committed to do it. But that's what we're entering. This resolution enters us into that process to commit to doing that.
Great. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nope,
Right.
you're on mute, Brian.
I said such wonderfully clever things, and
Ah.
so Andrew, I'm going to move you back to as a participant, and oops, as send you back as a attendee, and then if there's any other, I guess, show of hands again. I don't know if I don't see any other raised hands. We will have a second public comment section at the end of the meeting, but again, if any other members of the public would like to speak now, please press the raise hand button. Not seeing any, I'll take a motion to end the first of two public comment sessions this evening.
So moved.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. The next items on our agenda, we have three resolutions that were in our packet. I believe we'll hear a brief amendment suggested to 2025-32 from our attorney, but happy to pull any of them out or take any questions from our or have direct any questions to our team on any of these three. I'll just a personal note, want to thank Doug for continuing to advance the ball to get as much possibly back from the state and other sources for our train station project. That's what the second resolution represents. And then Krista for gathering the DVRPC for a possible traffic safety demonstration project. That resolution would allow us to enter into a MOU with them to get a future project off the ground. Also happy to take a motion for these three resolutions.
I'll move.
All right, do I have a second? All right, that's Krista and Deb second. So we'll do roll call, Reggie.
Mr. Fuller,
Yes.
Ms. Hook,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Ms. Steeler,
Yes.
Ms. Weaver,
Yes.
Ms. Lanius.
Yep, you're muted, Heidi.
Tried to use the space bar. It didn't work this time. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you, everyone. Next item on our agenda, we always have 2 speaking opportunities. So again, we may have already heard from everybody, but if you'd like to speak or make a comment or question directed to council, now would be the time there. If you could push your raised hand button on Zoom, I'm happy to recognize you. And first, Ms. Cookman, I will bring you over as a panelist. And for our second time, we do try to ask you to limit people to 3 minutes. All right. Melissa, you should be able to unmute yourself. I know it takes a second to kind of your computer to wake back up once becoming a panelist, but
There it
we
is.
hear you. And if you want to reintroduce yourself and
Melissa
make your comment or
Cookman, live
question.
in the borough. I just wanted to say that they did a great job with the snow, all the plowing and everything. I was pretty impressed. I wish I'd done my driveway, but yeah. So I just wanted to acknowledge that it was a great job. That was it.
Many thanks for that. We'll be sure to pass the accolades on both to our in-house team and the people at the county. I'll also note that there was a water main break right after that, and our people were out like at 4 a.m. Dealing with that, and they as always go above and beyond. And Melissa, just thank you for.
Well, if they ever need it, I keep a bucket of hand warmers for anybody who delivers anything to my house. And, you know, in the summer you put out something to drink. So, and most people don't even know about them, so they're pretty happy. And so if I'd seen them, I would have given it to them.
That's awesome. Thank you.
That's all. Just wanted to let you know.
All right, Melissa, I'm going to put you back as an attendee. If we have any other comments from the public, we certainly take them now. Push your raised hand button on Zoom, or if you're called in, and I don't think anyone is, that's *9. Not seeing any, I'm happy to take a motion to close the second public comment session.
So moved.
Second.
All right. I'm looking for one more motion to adjourn. But before you, I just want to thank everybody. Hopefully this was a little easier for something we had to do time-wise to do it by Zoom. Appreciate everyone's patience, both from a public and council and our professionals, and having it work. But thank you all for making the extra time for the second meeting this month. Much appreciated. And with that, happily take a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
Yep. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
I'm going to give that one to Anthony. Sorry, he won. All in favor?
All right.
All right. Thanks again, everyone. Have a great night.